Hello, and welcome to Eat to Treat. We are a nonprofit that aims to end health disparities, and I'm Dr. Amaris Williams. I have a PhD in nutrition, and I'm an avid foodie and a cook. So, as part of Eat to Treat, I do live cook along cooking demonstrations of hypertension friendly and oftentimes diabetes friendly recipes with some modification. Um, and we do them on the first and the third Saturday of every month at 3 p.m. right here, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube. And I post ingredients ahead of time, usually Wednesday before the demo. This time I posted the ingredients. I would say like around 5 o'clock a.m. this morning, because I was still tweaking the recipe, but I've got it right, and we're making lasagna. So it's going to be delicious. It's going to have, we're making it with turkey, and it's going to have vegetables in it. So it's going to be more healthful than a fatty beef with no vegetable lasagna. And it's also going to taste good. So let's get started. All right. So I've got small onions. So I actually have two. And this is an egg, which I don't need right now. But the first step is turn on a pot of water that you're going to cook your lasagna noodles in. So this is one of the largest pots that I have, and that's what I'm going to use for my lasagna noodles. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this on. And I'm going to turn it on 8 out of 10 and go ahead and let the water boil. You can put salt in here if you want. I'm not going to put salt in mine just because all the other ingredients that we're using, many of them has salt in it. So I'm not going to put salt in my water because I'm just trying to limit the amount of salt that I'm eating today. And the next step is get your ground turkey. This happens to be 85-15, so 85% lean, 15% fat. And that's just because that's all that they had at the grocery store when I went. But 93-7 would be better, so 93% lean, 7% fat. Obviously, that's less fat. But what I'm going to do with this 85-15 is cook it and then drain the fat off. So it shouldn't be too bad. But because it has so much fat in it, I don't need to put fat in my pan. I'm just going to go ahead and dump it in there and turn it on. Alright, and so now while that's starting to brown, I'm going to chop up my onions. And I want these relatively finely diced, so I'm going to dice them. First, I cut the stem off and then cut it in half through the root, so that the root is still attached to both halves of the onion. And then I will slice it parallel to the root, and then turn it and slice it perpendicular to what I just sliced it. Okay? And then I'm just going to put this to the side. Once some of the fat comes out of the turkey, I'm going to put the onion in there with the turkey and let it all cook together. So the other half of the onion, slice it the same way, parallel to the root, and then perpendicular to that, and just run your knife through it. These don't have to be pretty. This is not a competition. No one's going to be looking at the pieces of onion and say, oh, this piece of onion is bigger than this other piece of onion. Nobody cares. They're just going to be eating it. Alright. I'm starting to get a little bit of fat rendering out of my turkey. Okay, so my onion is done. The next thing we're going to cut up is the broccoli. But first, I'm going to get the onion in the pan. And you can add seasoning to the turkey meat if you're interested. But we're going to season the sauce that we cook with the turkey meat. So it's going to have plenty of seasoning in it. And we're going to taste it at the end and adjust the seasonings as necessary. So I wouldn't worry too much about seasoning the turkey right now. Especially with salt. So if you want to put some cayenne and make it a little spicy or something like that in there, then go for that. But anything that doesn't have salt in it, you can go ahead and add now. But the salt, wait until the end to add. Okay. Alright, so I have a head and a half of broccoli here. I'm only going to use about one head. And I'm going to cut the broccoli pretty finely because I don't want big chunks of broccoli in my lasagna. This is just personal preference. If you want recognizable pieces of broccoli in your lasagna, then definitely go ahead and leave florets or however it's said, and go ahead and leave those in there. But I'm just gonna run my knife through this in any kind of fashion, no particular method. Just cut it one direction, turn it around, cut it another direction, and keep doing that until I've got small enough pieces. And then I'm going to put it in the pan with the turkey and the onion. And this is a good way to make spaghetti sauce or any kind of tomato sauce where you're going to serve it with pasta or anything else you serve tomato sauce with. And you want some vegetables in there so that, and you want it to still be palatable. And say you have kids and they don't want to eat broccoli, but they'll eat it if you cut it up real small and put it in tomato sauce and put it on some pasta. It's kind of a way of hiding your vegetables. Oh, my oven is preheated. So if your oven is not on, which because it probably won't be because I didn't tell you, put your oven on at 375. Sorry about that. I always forget to tell you to put your oven on. Alright. So oven on 375, just FYI. Okay. A little bit more broccoli, I think, in there. Maybe I won't put this whole head. This was kind of a large head. Maybe I'll just do 3/4 of it. But this, you know, you can eyeball it. This is a personal preference type of thing. The more vegetables, the better, of course, but the whole point is to make it delicious for you. So And keep in mind, we're also going to put some spinach in the sauce after we get the tomatoes in there and get everything cooking. Okay, so my water is not quite boiling yet. So let's just open up all our cans of tomato products. So I have whole peeled tomatoes. I thought I had some crushed tomatoes or diced tomatoes in my pantry, but I didn't. So I only have whole peeled tomatoes, and this should work. I'm just going to crush them in the pan. And it would be better if these were no salt added, but they do have salt in them. It's one of the ingredients on the label. If you're wondering if your tomatoes have salt in them, you can just read the label. If it has more than, let's say, 150 milligrams of sodium in it, then they probably added salt to it. And if you look in the ingredients, you can see if they added salt to it. And if they did, it's not a problem. Just keep that in mind as you're preparing the rest of this, that you don't add too much extra salt if your tomatoes have salt in them. Alright. The next thing I'm going to open is my 2 cans of tomato paste. The tomato paste does not have salt in it, which surprised me. I thought it would definitely have salt in it, but tomato paste does not have salt in it. It just has tomatoes and citric acid. And the citric acid is just so the tomatoes don't change colors. It's a little preservative, but it's a natural preservative. It's naturally occurring in citrus. That's why they call it citric acid. Alright. And one more can. Okay. So my meat is browned. My vegetables are starting to cook. So I'm going to go ahead and add my tomatoes. And get a fork. Get my tomato paste in there. And I put on the recipe a half a cup of water, but really you just do what you think is best. We're using a lot of tomato paste here, so we're gonna have to reconstitute it some with some water. But it doesn't need to be super soupy, because one, we're going to be adding spinach, and the spinach is going to release water when we add it. And two, you just don't want it super soupy. So I'm going to stir this in, and you can see probably that my water is boiling from my lasagna, and that's going to be the next step. We're going to put those lasagna noodles in there. So go ahead and stir in your tomato products and your water. And if you're using whole tomatoes like I am, you can just crush them with your spoon. Okay. Oh, garlic paste. Forgot about the garlic paste. Go ahead and put your garlic paste in your tomato sauce. Should be about a tablespoon of garlic paste. And stir that in. And then the seasonings. So, we've got pepper, we've got Italian seasoning, and we've got dried basil. I actually don't have Italian seasoning. I have all the things that Italian seasoning are made of. So I've got marjoram, put a little bit of that in there. And I've got oregano. I'll put some of that in there. But if you have Italian seasoning, go ahead and use that, because you probably don't have an arsenal of herbs like I do. And this is parsley, so I'm going to put dried parsley flakes in there. Dried parsley flakes. And I've got the basil. This is the dried basil. So I'll put some of that in there. About a half teaspoon worth of that. Half tablespoon of basil. And then I've got sage. And I'll put just a little bit of sage. Sage is kind of a strong flavor. And finally, I've got some thyme, dried thyme, and I'm going to put that in there, a good pinch of that. Alright. Oh, and the pepper. I forgot about the pepper. So get your pepper grinder and go ahead and grind some in there. And stir that through. And that's pretty much it for the sauce, except for the spinach. Put that in there in a minute. But first we got to get these lasagna noodles in this water. Alright. I've got a pound of lasagna noodles in this box. I think I'm only going to use half of it. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the water. Okay, that's probably enough. And if you're not worried about your blood sugar, you can use the whole box of lasagna noodles if you want. But I mean, the lasagna noodles to me are just a medium. Like, they just hold the sauce together, so you don't need, there's not like it's not like they're delicious by themselves, so I don't see the point in having a lot of them in there. I think the sauce is the main attraction of a lasagna. The sauce and the cheese. Alright. So, the reason why I'm stirring these noodles is, one, to get all the noodles under the water, and two, I don't want them to stick to each other. It'll make it harder to assemble it. Okay, so the last thing for the sauce is to put the spinach in there and start letting that wilt. So I've got quite a bit of spinach here. I'm not going to use all of it. They say this stuff is washed, so I'm going to trust them. Put my spinach in there. I said about 4 cups. That's about 2 good handfuls of spinach. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, that's good. And then I'm going to stir the spinach in. Oh, the sauce is starting to smell really good with the all the herbs and the garlic. Okay. Let that cook for a little bit so that the spinach will wilt. And while we're waiting on the spinach to wilt, let's make the cheese mixture. So for that, we're using ricotta and Parmesan with an egg. The mozzarella will sprinkle in between the layers once we assemble the lasagna. So we need 15 ounces of ricotta, and I'm using a part skim ricotta. And this is a 24-ounce container, so I only use about 2/3 of it. Actually, I really like ricotta cheese, so I'm just going to dump this whole thing in there. You guys do what you want. And plus, I don't have any other use for it, so might as well use it all. And 1 egg. If you're using extra cheese like I am, you might want more than 1 egg. But I think 1 egg should be good. And then we're going to put a cup of Parmesan cheese, grated, in there. Now I only have this block of Parmesan, so I'm going to have to grate mine. Don't forget to stir your sauce. But basically, we're using the Parmesan to flavor the ricotta, because ricotta doesn't really have much going for it besides texture. The flavor is not that strong as in ricotta cheese, but Parmesan has a strong flavor, plus it has a decent amount of salt in it. So that's what we're using to flavor the ricotta. Okay. But keep in mind that it does have salt, so don't go too crazy with it. Let's see what I'm doing here. And I understand that this is not the best thing to watch someone grate Parmesan. At least not from this angle. If I had like a slow motion camera looking at it from the side and you could just watch the Parmesan fall, then maybe that would be more stimulating, but this. Alright. Where's my fork? It's got tomato paste on it. Okay. So just beat your egg and your Parmesan into your ricotta. And you can add more herbs to your cheese mixture here if you want. I've seen some recipes that suggest putting parsley in with your ricotta and Parmesan. But I don't know, I think it's good without it, especially since we put enough herbs in the sauce. But you know, you do what you want. This is your creation. I'm going to add a little bit more Parmesan to mine. Alright. So the spinach is almost cooked. And even if it doesn't cook on the stovetop all the way, it will cook in the oven because we're going to bake this for 50 minutes, which is a decent amount of time, and it'll definitely wilt the spinach. So I wouldn't worry about the spinach too much. Alright, so I think we're ready to start assembling this. Let me just clean off some space so I can do that. Okay, so I've got this small baking dish here. I've got some other ones because it's probably not going to be big enough. And what I like to do is put a little bit of sauce in the bottom, because I find that if you don't, your noodles will stick to the bottom of the pan and it'll be hard to get them out when you try to serve it. So it doesn't have to be a thick layer of sauce, just enough to separate the noodles from the bottom of the pan. And then go ahead and get yourself some noodles. And I'm going to turn this off. And then lay the noodles on top of the sauce. So we got, just to recap, we've got a layer of sauce, we've got a layer of noodles. Here comes the mozzarella. This one, okay, here it is. So I'm just going to sprinkle some mozzarella on top. And this is a part skim mozzarella, just like the ricotta. And then I'm gonna turn the sauce off now. And then I'll put sauce on top of that. I'll put a heavier layer of sauce this time. Okay, now I've got my sauce. Now for the ricotta. Spread some ricotta on top of the sauce. And then I'm going to put some more mozzarella because I like cheese. And then I'll put some noodles on top of that. And I'm getting to the top of my dish here. So this is all I'm going to put in this dish. I'm going to put one more layer of noodles and then top them with cheese. And then I'll put it in the oven. Now, we're going to bake it for 50 minutes, but 25 minutes it's covered with foil. Oh, it's hot. 25 minutes covered with foil, 25 minutes uncovered. And that's just to brown the cheese that you're going to put on top. So by the time that's all done, the egg and the ricotta will be cooked, the turkey will be cooked, the spinach will be wilted. All right, I'm going to put ricotta on there. Okay, and some more mozzarella. And I think I am going to put some sauce on top. You don't have to. But I am. Do what you want. And since I put sauce on there, I want cheese on the very top, so I'll put some more mozzarella. Okay, so like I said, we're going to cover this in foil, put it in the oven, bake it 25 minutes, take the foil off, bake it another 25 minutes. And that's really it. I mean, I don't think it's necessary for you guys to watch me make the rest of my lasagna dishes. But your oven should be on 375. Let me change the view. Okay, so your oven should be on 375. And that's what the temperature you're going to bake this at for 50 minutes. You don't need to change the temperature when you take the foil off or anything like that. I don't have one that is pre-made to show you what it looks like, but most people I think know what lasagna looks like. And the only reason why I didn't make multiples of this recipe is actually I have very few oven safe dishes that are square or rectangular. So I couldn't make an extra lasagna. But as soon as I eat this one, I probably will make another one. All right. That's it, though. Thanks for joining. Today we made lasagna, which was hypertension friendly because we added vegetables and we limited the salt that we used. Oh, taste your sauce. I didn't taste my sauce. Taste your sauce. Make sure it's good. And then put it in your dish. Lasagna, right. Hypertension. There we go. We made lasagna hypertension friendly by adding vegetables and limiting the salt. And then we use turkey, so it's DASH friendly, DASH diet, DASH stands for dietary approaches to stop hypertension. And this should be a delicious way to feed your body without harming it by increasing your blood pressure. So um, that's it. Thank you for joining. I'll see you next time, which will be the first Saturday in June. So, okay.